Something is happening in the northwestern part of India that could quietly devastate the lives of millions across Rajasthan, Haryana, and Delhi. But you won't see emergency alerts. You won't hear daily headlines, and you certainly won't see protests loud enough to stop it. Because this disaster doesn't arrive like an explosion. It arrives like erosion. For over 1.5 billion years, the Aravalli mountain range stood here, older than the Himalayas, older than life as we know it. A geological spine stretching nearly 800 kilometers, shielding the Indo-Gangetic plains from desertification. Today, it is being erased. Not by nature, by design. Welcome to Twisted Plots. Here, we uncover the stories buried beneath official silence and collective denial. And today, we're stepping into a slow catastrophe most people will only notice after it's irreversible. This is the silent death of the Aravallis. This video is not an attack on any specific government, party, or institution. It is a structural critique of environmental governance failures observed across decades. The intent is awareness, not incitement, fear, or political instruction. The broken shield. To understand why this matters, you have to look at the map, not politically, not administratively, geographically. The Aravalli Range is not just a set of hills scattered across northwestern India. It is a natural barricade, a geological wall that has stood between the Thar Desert and the national capital region for over 1 billion years. On one side of this wall lies the Thar, expanding, arid, unforgiving. On the other side lies Delhi, Gurugram, Jaipur, Faridabad, some of the most densely populated urban regions in the country. The Aravallis sit between them like a final line of defense. They are the desert shield. But in November 2025, that shield was almost legally dismantled. On November 20th, 2025, the Supreme Court accepted a new definition of what constitutes a hill. The rule was simple but devastating. If a hill isn't 100 meters tall relative to its surroundings, it's not a hill, it's just land. This 100-meter rule meant that nearly 90% of the Aravalli Range, the low-lying ridges that recharge our groundwater and block the dust, lost their legal protection overnight. It was a green light for real estate and mining. The butterfly effect was immediate. Fears of a dust bowl in Delhi and a water collapse in Haryana began to feel like a certainty, not a prediction. The butterfly effect. What's happening in the Aravallis is not a single event. It's a chain reaction, a slow, cascading failure, where the destruction of hills triggers consequences far beyond geography. Scientists call this a butterfly effect. Small, localized damage, escalating into climatic, agricultural, and human disasters. Let's walk through it, stage by stage. Stage 1, the breach and the wind tunnel. The first stage begins quietly, with a breach. The Aravallis once formed a continuous natural barrier, a shield separating the Thar Desert from the national capital region. That shield is no longer intact. Today, 12 major gaps exist in the Aravalli Range. Not metaphorical gaps, physical ones. And these gaps function like wind tunnels. Here's the mechanism. Westerly winds from the Thar Desert, once slowed, filtered, and weakened by the hills, now pass through unopposed. High-velocity dust storms surge straight into the NCR. This does two things simultaneously. It increases PM10, coarse dust particles suspended in the air, and more dangerously, it carries PM2.5, microscopic particles that penetrate deep into human lungs and bloodstream. This isn't speculation. The Desertification and Land Degradation Atlas, published by ISRO, confirms that desertification is migrating eastward through these gaps. As vegetation is stripped away by mining, soil loses cohesion. The land itself becomes a dust source, generating what scientists call in situ dust. The desert no longer needs to travel. It is being recreated right here.
Stage 2, the toxic air crisis. Delhi and the NCR are already infamous for their air, but the destruction of the Aravallis ensures something far worse: pollution that is no longer seasonal, no longer episodic, but permanent. The Aravalli forests functioned as the region's lungs, a mature tree canopy, traps dust, absorbs gaseous pollutants, acts as a carbon sink. Mining doesn't just remove hills, it removes this natural filtration system. The result is not inconvenience, it is a public health emergency. Rising cases of respiratory illness, cardiovascular disease, reduced life expectancy. The slow death of the hills becomes the slow death of the people breathing beside them. This is why it's called silent. Stage 3, agricultural collapse and soil salinization. The damage doesn't stop in the air, it settles into the soil. As desert winds breach the Aravallis, sand from the Thar is deposited onto the fertile loam soils of Haryana, western Uttar Pradesh. This is known as the dust bowl effect. The sand reduces water holding capacity, dilutes nutrients, degrades fertility. Fields that once sustained generations begin to fail. Then comes the second blow, salinization. As groundwater levels drop, farmers are forced to drill deeper. But deep aquifer water is often saline. When used for irrigation, it poisons the soil. This is already visible. In the mining belts of Rajasthan, agricultural yields have fallen to 30% of historical norms. Once productive farmland becomes wasteland, not abandoned by farmers, abandoned by viability. Stage 4, climate migration and ghost villages. When land can no longer feed people, people move. India has already seen this story elsewhere. In the hill districts of Uttarakhand, entire settlements have emptied out as springs dried up. They're called ghost villages. This is not fiction, it is documented. The same pattern is now emerging in the Aravalli belts of Rajasthan. In mining districts like Sikar and Junjunu, the working-age population is leaving. Farming is no longer viable. The environment is increasingly toxic. This displacement doesn't disappear, it moves into cities like Delhi, Jaipur. Cities are already stretched to their limits. According to projections, by 2050, India could see 45 million internal climate migrants. The collapse of the Aravalli ecosystem will be a primary driver of this migration in North India. This is not an environmental issue. It is a civilizational survival crisis. When hills fall, air turns toxic, soil turns barren, villages empty, cities choke, and the bill arrives, not all at once, but all the same. But then, something rare happened. After a long time, the public pushed back. Outrage spread from the villages of Rajasthan to the high-rises of Gurugram, and the system blinked. The gavel and the fury. On December 29, 2025, just days before the new year, the Supreme Court did a U-turn. Acknowledging the ambiguity and the massive public dissent, the court placed its own November order in abeyance. It was a stay order, a pause button. The 100-meter rule was put on ice, and a new expert committee was formed. For a moment, it felt like a victory for the mountains. But while the lawyers argued in Delhi, the drills in the desert never stopped. The night shift. A stay order is just a piece of paper if no one enforces it. While the Supreme Court debated definitions, the mining mafia was busy cementing its grip. In New, Haryana, investigators recently uncovered a scandal that reads like a crime thriller. A police charge sheet revealed that mining operators pooled over 1 crore rupees, not to fix the environment, but to bribe officials. Their goal? To build an illegal 10-kilometer road cutting straight through the hills, bypassing all checkpoints. A dedicated highway for stolen stone. And it's not just Haryana. In Jaipur, just days after the Supreme Court's stay order, the administration seized 16 vehicles and heavy machinery in a massive crackdown. They found excavators tearing into the earth, extracting limestone and sand, completely ignoring the legal pause. The numbers are staggering. In the last 7 years, over 71,000 instances of illegal mining have been recorded in Rajasthan alone. That's not a few rogue actors. That is an industry. An industry that operates in the shadows, often allegedly protected by a nexus of power and money. The same nexus that changes dress and comes in front of showing the care, and they will protect you and make your life better if you support and choose them.
The dust in the lungs. While the top brass is making millions and billions, the workers are dying. The cost of this stone isn't just measured in rupees or acres, it's measured in breath. In the mining belts of Rajasthan, a silent epidemic is raging. Silicosis. Incurable, painful, fatal. Studies suggest that up to 79% of stone mine workers in this region suffer from silicosis. They inhale silica dust every day so that our cities can have marble floors and granite countertops. By 2026, an estimated 52 million workers across India could be at risk. For them, the death of the Aravallis isn't a metaphor. It's a medical diagnosis. So, where do we stand? The Supreme Court is set to hear the case again on January 21st, 2026. They will decide if a hill is defined by its height or by its role in keeping us alive. The legal battle is paused, but the ecological clock is ticking. If the Aravallis fall, the desert moves in, the water runs out, and the air becomes unbreathable. This isn't just a story about rocks and court orders. It's a story about whether we are willing to trade our future for a few truckloads of stone. Who benefits? This isn't accidental. It never was. Every mining lease is approved. Every construction contract is signed. Every political donation is quietly accepted. Every corporate report stays silent. Each destroyed hill generates revenue for someone, and every dry bore well generates desperation for everyone else. Environmental collapse is profitable, as long as the consequences arrive slowly, quietly, out of sync with accountability. By the time people feel it, the beneficiaries have already moved on. The psychological trick. So why don't people react? Why isn't there outrage? Because the damage is distributed, delayed, normalized. One missing hill doesn't feel catastrophic, it feels manageable. Until water tankers become permanent, until heat stops being seasonal and becomes unlivable, until food prices spike without warning, until migration begins. Collapse never announces itself. It just arrives. The Aravallis are not an exception. They're a template. The pattern is always the same. First, denial, then dilution of law, then exploitation, then irreversible damage, and finally, public shock. Always too late. This isn't mismanagement. It's not oversight. It's not negligence. It's a model. When the Aravallis vanish completely, desertification accelerates, water wars intensify, cities turn unlivable, climate migration explodes. This will not be remembered as an environmental story. It will be remembered as a humanitarian one. Because once mountains die, they don't come back. You can't rebuild them. We keep asking, who allowed this? But the harder question is, why did we accept it? If this story unsettled you, it should. If it made you uncomfortable, good. because silence is what allowed this to happen. Share this. Question it. Challenge the narrative of inevitable development, because the Aravallis are not dying quietly. We are choosing not to listen. This is Twisted Plots, and this was the silent death of the Aravallis.